Welcome, everyone. So I thought of doing something kind of cool and reviewing the 2023 first round picks and how they played out at the end of the year, and if there's any concerns with some of these guys as we head into 2024. Now, if we look back, this is for a half PPR, the ADPs were the following. Justin Jefferson, number 1. Christian McCaffrey, number 2. Jamar Chase, 3. Austin Eckler, 4. Travis Kelce, 5. Tyreek Hill, 6. Saquon Barkley, 7. Bijan Robinson, 8. Stefon Diggs, 9. And Nick Chubb, 10. So as you can see by several of those names, many of us are going to be disappointed. Out of all of the names I listed, only 3 of those players finished in the top 3, really top 5, in their respective teams. Many of them were past the 28th mark. As you see, it only takes 1 or 2 injuries to really derail a season. Starting with Justin Jefferson, he was on an absolute tear his first couple of years, and he started off super hot. He had never missed a game due to injury in his entire career before missing a significant amount of time after leaving week 5 with a grade 2 hamstring strain, and then did not return until week 14. So if you cut him, meaning traded him in week 7, week 8, week 9, you benefited significantly because someone who traded for him still had to wait 4 or 5 weeks to get him back. So that was Justin Jefferson. He finished as the wide receiver 29, unfortunately, with that significant hamstring strain. And he had a couple monster games at the end of the season, but it was a little too late. Now, does some of that risk carry over to 2024? A little bit. But I'm more concerned as it pertains to him with really having to do with his quarterback play. Is it Sam Darnold? Is it J.J. McCarthy? How's this offense going to run? It's probably not going to be as efficient as when Kirk Cousins was there, so they might have more 3 and outs. They're probably not going to get as many throwing attempts. And then how is this going to play out for Justin Jefferson? Is he going to be able to stay healthy throughout the whole season like he had been previously? Or is he going to struggle? We don't really know. But in general, is he still a top 5 wide receiver? Yes. Am I willing to take him in the top 3? No. He's too risky, in my opinion, given everything I just said, despite how much of a monster he is and how much of a ridiculous contract he just got. Now, pivoting to the second pick in last year's draft, and he'll probably be a top 3 pick this year, depending on the league scoring, and that's Christian McCaffrey. So McCaffrey has had a fantastic career. Had a ridiculous 2018, 2019, and then unfortunately the wheels fell off in 2020 and again in 2021. Bounced back strong in 22, and then had an amazing season last year. Actually missed the final game of the season with a calf strain, but still finished way ahead of anyone behind him. Part of the problem I have with McCaffrey is that eventually he's going to start breaking down. The question is when. And I'd rather be a year early than a year late. And for McCaffrey, you pretty much have to draft him at the first or second position because you're not going to get him after that. And last year he led the NFL in touches again, but he didn't have a lot of touches compared to, say, 2019. I think he got somewhere in the 330s or 335, I think, somewhere around there, which isn't a lot for him. He reached 400 touches back in 2019. But, I don't know if they're going to continue to push him this hard because they, do they? I don't know. If you're drafting him 1 of 1, that's what you're expecting. He is the best player on the field. He is the most dynamic player in the NFL, non-QB wise when he's on the field. But if he starts to show a little wear and tear, it may get a little ugly pretty quickly. So I have my reservations with McCaffrey this year. I have no concerns with you if you were to fade him based on possible injury risk. Obviously, he has the highest upside. We've seen that. But it is what it is, and it just depends on which route you're going. Are you going wide receiver? Or are you going running back at the first pick? Transitioning to the number 3 pick in the 2023 draft, on average ADP, was Jamar Chase. Now, Jamar Chase, super dynamic, unbelievable player, just freak athlete. We'll see what happens this year. Obviously, he's still currently holding out. I don't know if they're going to work a deal for him now, or how maybe they'll give him a little bit more guaranteed money this year just to kind of keep him happy. I don't know how it's going to play out. But where am I at with Jamar Chase heading into 2024? Well, last year he had 2 injuries. He played through a little bit of a back injury, and then he missed 1 game with a right shoulder injury. But remember that the year before he had that weird hip injury that cost him a couple games. And he was, I wouldn't say dependent, but when Burrow went down, he was nowhere near as good, obviously, not surprising. He was still pretty good. I mean, he finished as the wide receiver 13, but he wasn't like smash mouth unbelievable like Justin Jefferson was with the QBs throwing to him. So, I have some reservations. Joe Burrow has this weird wrist injury that he should be 100% from. I still have some concerns about that just because it's so rare, at least for an NFL quarterback. We've never seen one with it. And in general, I think there are other paths to Chase having the wide receiver 1 season, but I just don't know if I'm willing to roll the dice on him. I view him as more of a moderate injury risk than a mild or low injury risk. 4th pick in the 2023 drafts is someone that was incredible, especially for an undrafted free agent, has been a monster for several years, and that's Austin Eckler. Now, Austin Eckler was just a receiving monster, could hold his own running, but unfortunately last year everything started to kind of collapse. He suffered the dreaded high ankle sprain, and you'll notice this is a theme, in week 1, and as a result missed 3 games. Now, the problem with this injury is that it's what we call a rotational injury, meaning that when you put your foot on the ground and you try to rotate that energy, that is the most painful part of this injury, and you don't get that back for a long time. Even missing 3 or 4 weeks, you're only about 50% better. You're not as explosive or elusive until about 6 months later, if not longer. These are awful injuries. So when you have someone that's kind of dependent on that, he can't do anything. He ended up finishing as the running back 28. This year, I think, is a little bit on the flip side. Now he's in Washington, has a little bit of a chip on his shoulder, as he should, and he's being drafted way, way, way lower and has massive value upside. I still think that he's going to catch a ton of balls now from Jaden Daniels. I have a little bit of injury concerns, but overall, Eckler had been really healthy up until this. He had that fluke hamstring injury a couple years ago. Besides that, the dude stays healthy. These stupid high ankle sprains, they just suck. All it takes is one guy tackling you in a weird position, and that's what happens. We saw several players have one. We saw Saquon have one. We saw Tyreek have one. I mean, there was about 10 guys that all suffered high ankle sprains, and it really derails their season. It takes 3, 4, 5 weeks to get them back comfortable, and they're just not really the same player. Number 5 was Travis Kelce. Now, Kelce has been a cheat code for 8-9 years now. Last year, he got all the Taylor Swifties to join him throughout the season, and now he has a massive following with him and Taylor Swift. But in general, Kelce continued to be dominant. Not as dominant as the previous years, but still really good. Now, he had that fluky knee injury a couple days before the first game of the season, and due to timing, he just had to miss the game, and that impacted him a little bit in the overall standings. He finished as the tight end 3. I think if he played in that game, he probably would have finished as the 2. I don't know if he would have had enough points to finish as the 1 that Laporta managed to pull off. In general, Kelce looks like he still has it. I don't really have any major concerns for Kelce heading into 2024. Eventually he will start to slow down, but he may be the type that when he calls it quits, he just calls it quits, and he just doesn't show a decline in health or effectiveness on the field. But, overall, I think there's several high-end tight ends this year that have potential, and obviously he's one of them. I don't have any concerns if you want to draft him as a tight end 1 overall. I think there are several guys that you could justify. He's probably the safest out of all of them. So rock and roll with Kelce again in 2024. The sixth guy off the board last year was none other than Tyreek Hill. Now, Tyreek Hill continues to dominate despite kind of being overshadowed. He had his time with Mahomes. Now he has his time with Tua, and he's been arguably better. I mean, he finished as the wide receiver 2. He was absolutely incredible. CeeDee Lamb just had a crazy volume. That was the only reason why he was able to finish. But, Tyreek Hill actually had a high ankle sprain. I want to say it was week 13 or 14, somewhere around there. And he missed a game. But, I actually tried to get him into the office because I know his agent, but he was stubborn. He didn't want to come. But overall, he took a couple weeks to get his bearings. But he was just an absolute monster. And I have no reason to say, hey, why can't he do it again this year? I love Jalen Waddle as well. Tua just got a monster contract. So, in my opinion, there's no major red flags for Tyreek Hill yet. I don't have any. He's been able to stay really, really healthy. Even a high ankle sprain with 1 game mixed is incredible. He had that crazy chest injury years ago that most of you don't remember. But besides that, he's been really healthy. So, no concerns. Tyreek should be a top 3 wide receiver. No qualms about it at all. And I think it's going to be more of the same this year. They added even more firepower. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. No issues with Tyreek Hill. He was a fantastic pick last year. He was the 3rd wide receiver off the board, and he ended up finishing number 2. Saquon Barkley, he was the 7th guy off the board. He was the 3rd running back after Christian McCaffrey and Austin Eckler. And Saquon, unfortunately, struggled with injury. Again, he suffered another high ankle sprain, just like Austin Eckler and just like Tyreek Hill. Unfortunately, these have a tendency to really zap explosiveness and power, and this one was pretty early in the season, week 2, and it kept him out 3 games, and it's just tough to come back. And as we remember, the Giants' offensive line was just god-awful, so, unfortunately, he had a lot of issues. He really struggled with getting behind the line. The offensive line, the whole offense was god-awful. I mean, in general, Daniel Jones missed half the season with his ACL. So now the fact that he's in Philly, the offensive line is significantly better. He's gonna have a ton more goal line touches, significantly more. I'm not overly worried about the tush push. That's only a very unique situation. And in general, Saquon is going to get a lot of volume. He may lose a little bit to Will Shipley just to spell him or whatnot. But in general, Saquon has the potential to finish in the top 5, top 8 again. And realistically, I think that's very plausible. But injury-wise, I do have some concerns. He struggled to stay healthy. He had his ACL. He's had multiple high ankles. He's had all these kind of fluky injuries. But that's the nature of the running back position. But this should be the healthiest and the best offense he's ever played in, and now he just gets to reap the rewards of that. So I really like Saquon this year, and he finished as the RB12 despite missing 3 games, which is pretty impressive. If he were to miss 3 games, you could probably kind of expect the same thing. All right, Bijan Robinson. Rarely do we draft a rookie running back in the top 10 in their rookie season. Most of the time, rookies struggle. We have to go back to the 2017, 2018 season when a lot of the rookies were just ridiculous, and that was the McCaffreys, the Kamaras, and that whole class. But Bijan and Jahmyr Gibbs went Both went nuclear last year. Both of them were almost in timeshares too, which is kind of disappointing. And we may see a little bit more of that again. We heard some rumblings today from the coach, which isn't completely surprising. But I think Bijan is set to take on another planet this year. He's probably going to work out of the slot. He's probably going to get a ton of volume. He has obviously Kirk Cousins now. And, him, Drake London, Kyle Pitts should form a ridiculous trio. And in general, he only had one, we'll call it an injury, and it was that fluky game where he had headaches. He played like 1 or 2 snaps, and then he never played again. That kind of bit him. So he finished as the RB9. Despite that game, and despite really not getting as much workload as he really should have, given the quality of the team around him. The 9th player off the board in 2023 is one that's kind of fallen by the wayside in 2024, and that's Stefon Diggs. Stefon Diggs is unbelievably healthy. He's been able to stay really healthy for many years. I don't think he's missed a game due to injury in like 5 years. So he's one of the few that is super elite in that regard. Now, he played every game last year, but when the offense changed in week 9 or 10, whenever it was, when Joe Brady took over and they started running the ball a ton, he only scored over 13 points once after week 9. Despite finishing as the wide receiver 10, think about that. So he basically had single digits from the second half of the season, like 6 or 7 games, and he still finished as the wide receiver 10. Now he gets shipped off to Houston, where he's second or third, depending on who you ask. He very well could be first, especially if Nico or Tank gets banged up again. And I'm curious to see how this plays out. It's hard to realistically project him as a top 10, wide receiver, because I don't know if he's going to get the volume to do so. But injury-wise, I have zero concerns. This is one of those guys that knows how to prepare and probably has a little bit of a chip on his shoulder, saying like, hey, you didn't really want me in Buffalo anymore. Now it's time to shine in Houston. So I'm excited to see what he can do. He's not on my fade list. He's not really on my target list either, but I don't think he's a bad pick. And he might be one of those guys that just ends up finishing in the top 12 because everything breaks right and maybe someone around him gets injured and he just benefits as a result. The last guy, number 10, was the unfortunate victim of a significant injury, a very gruesome injury, and that's Nick Chubb. So Nick Chubb unfortunately suffered a torn ACL in that same left knee that he suffered way back, and I think it was 18 or 17 when he was at Georgia. Gruesome injury. And unfortunately, this one was significant as well. He had to undergo what we call a 2-stage approach, which basically means that because his MCL and meniscus was so torn, they had to address that first to provide stability to the knee and give him about 6 weeks before they could actually reconstruct his ACL. So he had 2 separate surgeries. Dr. Voos did it. And as a result, this is going to take time. He is not going to be the same running back in 2024. I don't know if he'll ever be the same running back again. But I am confident saying that he's going to take about a year from the date of second surgery. So we're talking about mid to late November-ish. Before he's really going to be comfortable on the field. He just started cutting recently. I don't know if he's going to start on the PUP or if he's going to start week 1. I could see it going either way. And right now you're going to get Jerome Ford at a massive discount, as well as Donta Foreman, who are the 2 guys who are going to supplant him if Chubb were to go on the PUP list. I have significant concerns about his ability to handle a lot of volume. He's not going to really catch any passes. So, what is he going to get? 8 to 12 touches a game if they're trying to keep him fresh? And if he doesn't have the same elusiveness and burst, is he really going to be effective the first 4 to 6 weeks of the season? Probably not, and that's why his ADP is down in the RB 30s and 40s or wherever it is right now. It's just an unfortunate injury for a significant player, and it's just he's not someone I'm targeting this year. He doesn't have his best case scenario was RB6, and that one was everything was perfect, and he was super healthy. So I just don't have a whole lot of upside for him because He doesn't catch the ball, and I think they're going to use him in a timeshare, and I have massive concerns about other injuries as well as him possibly starting on the PUP list for at least a month, if not longer. So you might not really be able to use him until week 5, 6, 7 or something like that. So I want someone that I can start early, that doesn't have these huge red flags coming off of a significant ACL reconstruction surgery. So I hope you like that. That was a review of the players drafted in the first 10 of 2023 and how that translates to 2024. I will start talking about different topics over the course of August. Let me know what you want to hear about. Check out our website at theinjuryexperts.com, and we have a lot of awesome content coming up. Be sure to subscribe and like, as well as maybe check out the TikTok if that's your cup of tea. We also have Instagram, Facebook, as well as the good old Twitter, where the majority of the content will be posted. Thank you for tuning in. We will see you again.